here we are. It is another day, another video, more 3D printing, interesting things from my past. Yeah, that's going to be quite the great thing that I like about all the people that frequent the channel here at The Varied Life is the wide, vast amount of different, I guess, experiences and stories that people have and the things that they ended up doing. It ends up being pretty interesting. And I've had a number of people who have contacted me, sent me emails to the email, official thevariedlife@gmail.com to share about their lives, whether it's overseas or in the United States or here in Korea. I guess Korea's overseas if you're somewhere else and it's over the sea. So we got that going on. But yeah, a lot of cool, interesting stories. And so it's neat to be able to share those things. And that is what today's video is going to be. I'm going to share some stuff about Facebook and how I'm so tired of Facebook. It is just, we're going to rehash why I'm not on Facebook again. Good Lord, seriously. Everything is so automated that you can't talk to a person. No live support, no nothing. Everything's automated and context is not taken into at all. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's getting kind of scary, because if it goes to this point that people are left out and there's no recourse or no human interaction, yeah, I could totally see social credit scores, kind of like what they have in China and other places, where yeah, if you're out, you're out, and you're ostracized. And it could, I mean, we already cancel people. They say stuff on Facebook and whatever it is, and people are getting canceled. They're thrown off of social media, and then employers get a whiff of all that stuff, and so it is absolutely crazy to the extent of how cancel culture has gotten. But even if you didn't do anything wrong, there's no recourse on Facebook. So we're going to jump into that, and we're going to talk about printing the Warhammer Axe. That's what we're ended up doing now. If we take a look at our Creality K2 Plus cam, there is the cam, and what we're ended up doing is we're moving some stuff here. There we go. So you can see a live feed of that. That is going on, so that we're on plate 3 of 5. So we printed out a bunch of plates so far, and things are going okay. We had a few problems with some of the items, but nothing that would kill the print, nothing that couldn't be fixed in post-processing. So I don't know if it might be the model itself. It might end up being I don't know. It could be Creality Print. The slicer that I use is just kind of interesting. I'm not sure what that is. So anyway, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to be talking about that. And we got George. George pops back in and says, howdy, George. And so we're going to, we got the Warhammer Axe thing, and then smuggling drugs into prison, because I had some people contact me. Well, actually, it wasn't some people, it was one person contacted me and asked me, how do drugs get into prison? Because if you watch, the movies or the TV series, maybe kind of like, what is it, The Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Reiner and stuff like that, and other prison shows, how do drugs get into prison? And we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to show you how drugs get smuggled into prison, and it's kind of an interesting little thing, a little bit of interesting background that I have experienced, and yeah, maybe you can learn a lesson on how not to smuggle drugs into prison. Not that I did any of that, but just don't do it. It's not recommended. So yeah, we're going to be talking about all that stuff there. That's kind of interesting. So the first thing we're going to do is, I guess I'm tired of Facebook. Facebook has gotten to the place of where I'm extremely tired of it. I used to be a happy Facebook user. I had my YouTube page called The Varied Life. Matter of fact, let me throw in the link to my YouTube page, because some people were asking about that. And I guess if I throw it into the comments section, you all will be able to take a look at that. And then hopefully you'll like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching this, I hope that you subscribe and or like the video. That would mean a lot to me. So there it is in the comments section, The Varied Life. So with that, the interesting thing is that I used to have a Facebook account. I was a good person. I'm still a good person. Adam pops up. Hey, he says, hey, how are you doing today? Hey, pretty good, minus the Facebook debacle thing that's been going on. But other than that, it's been going pretty good. Glad to see you here. Good. So we're talking about these things about, I'm tired of Facebook. A little bit of a background. I used to have a Facebook page, and I would post. And I remember what was the other page that they had? George pops up and says, oh no, not the prison wallet. That's one way you can sneak drugs into prison. And unfortunately, I've seen that. Not just like I've seen it in an article. I've seen that in which I wish I didn't see how the prison pocket worked and how drugs and other things came into the prisons. Anyway, let's get back to the Facebook before we get into the juicy details of smuggling drugs into prison. So I was a pretty decent human being. I mean, according to Facebook, I ended up doing the Facebook thing, and let me see if I can get this centered. There we go. I was doing the Facebook thing, commenting, and sometimes I was a little edgy, sometimes, and then everything was fine. Everything was going fine. I disagree with people. People would disagree with me. We would give, likes and, hearty comments about puppy dogs and rainbows and things like that, all the cool stuff. That was going on. But then I started live streaming my YouTube through the service or the program that I have here that would stream it on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. And I thought, hey, knock out two at once so I wouldn't have to upload videos and do all that. I can just stream them both. And on one video, what I ended up doing in one streaming session is I was talking about being retired in Korea. So for those people who don't know, I'm retired in Korea, and go over Korean news, public news sources that are available to everybody on the internet, unless you're in, communist North Korea or, some other strange country that, censors news, publicly accessible news. But so I was talking about crime and the crime differences between Korea and the United States. And of course, with that, when you talk about crime, you talk about what types of crime. So I said the names of some crimes, and Facebook, the automated Facebook red flag machine started just throwing up red flags everywhere. And it was just, oh, danger, Will Robinson, danger. It ended up being kind of rough. Now, the words that I used were okay in Korea and in the United States. If you watch the news, if you log on to news sources, the Associated Press or CBS or MSNBC or whatever it is, any type of news source would have the categorizations of these crimes. And apparently Facebook is like, no, that's verboten. You can't do that. And so it flagged my account, suspended my account. And in the appeals process, I was like, oh, well, all I was doing was showing, I didn't really show, I was talking about articles. I flashed them up on the screen, kind of like what I do, and then, go back and we talk and hash things out and whatever. But apparently the words, because you can't say certain words on Facebook, you have to, you can't say grape, take the G off of the grape, and you know what I'm talking about. You can't say that word, but you can say grape. You can't say certain words, but you can say PDF, and people know what you're talking about, or whatever it is. So in other words, there's words that have meanings, and then we can't say those because they're bad words. But then we can replace those words with the exact same meaning with another word that everybody already knows what the definition of that word is, because it used to mean the word over here that is now banned and blocked and flagged. I don't get it. I think Facebook needs to have like an NC-17 so people can talk normally instead of talking in code and still have the same meanings. I don't know. It's kind of wild. Adam says, glad you are okay. And yeah, myself, I avoid Twitter at all costs. It's filled with activists and just political wars. Yeah. I don't really do the Twitter thing or X or whatever. I mean, I'll go on it every once in a while, but I visit a variety of, WeChat and, all these other ones and stuff like that, but it's just not really my thing. I don't spend vast amounts of time or any considerable or significant amount of time on those things because it doesn't really help me out. I mean, I get my news from multiple sources in the United States and overseas, and because I live overseas, I kind of focus more on the overseas stuff. So, but I still keep up with current events in the United States. And, being an independent, I look at news sources from the left and the right and in between and, whatever, all of that stuff to try to get a well-rounded view. So, in other words, I look at all the news articles on a subject to try to get both sides of the story and everything in between, and I can make my own decisions. Make an informed decision. That's what it's all about. Just make an informed decision that's hopefully framed in common sense. And not a real big... I don't see how somebody either on Twitter before it became X or on X or even, TikTok, I just really don't get this constant scrolling. I guess maybe if you had signed up for certain things like, I don't know, on a certain hobby topic or work or whatever it is, and you're gaining useful information that you can put into practice. But as far as just doom scrolling, yeah, that's not me. I don't really get that. It's and there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, what are the odds? Misinformation on social media. So anyway, back to the Facebook Facebook thing. So I had my account. It got suspended, and it says, well, you went against the guidelines, and apparently because of the words that I use from publicly accessed articles on crime and the breakdown of categories of crime and comparing that between Korea and the United States or Korea and Japan or Japan and the United States, that just sent off a flurry of red flags, so my account was suspended. So if you've never had this happen, there's a button down below when you get that notification that says appeal. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, they suspended it for A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. So I'll hit the appeal, we'll talk about it and say, hey, the context of this, and there was no copyrighted information, that, no IP infringement or anything like that, copyright infringement. And lo and behold, there is no real person appeal process at Facebook. It's all automated. So I was pretty much stuck. Chill and Connect 1 pops in and says, hello there. Hello. So yeah, I was stuck. It was like, so I hit the appeal thing and click, and it's like, yeah, we'll get back to you with, whatever X amount of time. And it was like, no, it's done. And it's like, but it's about context. There was no infringement. It's not like I was telling people to go commit crimes against people. I was just referencing news articles from the United States that anybody and their grandmother, including children, could access on the interwebs that they see on TV, on free TV channels and news stations here in Korea and in the United States, just talking about crime levels. That's all. That's all it was doing, and how safe it is here in Korea. I've never felt unsafe in Korea. Hopefully it'll stay that way. But it didn't work out that way. And so the appeal process was all totally automated. You have no contact with any physical person or live chat or anything, and it's just like it's done. And so I tried appealing and doing it again and again. I tried opening accounts with different email addresses. Facebook is like now has this facial recognition thing, and it didn't work. I was on Facebook via my wife's Facebook page. And then I had, she made a page that had my stuff, and I would throw my 3D printing videos and YouTube stuff for the Varied Life on there. Just as I'm not selling anything, I'm not advertising anything, but, Facebook pops up and says, and said it was advertising. And it's like, it's not a business. It was never a business page. It was just another personal page. So, yeah, it just ended up rough. Let's see, we got Joan Connect says, how did the print turn out? Well, we're still printing. We're doing there's the Corality K2 Plus cam that we got going on right up there. So we're on plate number 3, and I made a mistake, and there's 5 plates. So, matter of fact, where do I got that? I've got a bag of parts. And I'm putting all the parts in this lovely bag. I am now the bag man. And in this, I'm just going to put all the parts in here for this. And it's turned out. So, parts came out pretty decent. You can see we got some good lines and everything. First layers turned out great that you can end up seeing there. I got to take off some supports, but everything came out good with the exception, for some strange reason, of right around here. So you can see how that's all buggered up there, around there. Oh, you can really see that. Really see that there? Especially up there. I don't know if it's the model, because I printed out the Frostmourne sword with no problems whatsoever. And then I started printing this, Warhammer Axe. So yeah, I really don't know why that's going. I mean, it's not a deal killer. And what I ended up doing, all the other stuff printed out fine. The clips, the other parts and things like that, no problems whatsoever. But it was just on that edge. And I am printing it at a 0.16 millimeter layer height, but that should make a difference because I've used that before. So I'm thinking maybe there's a problem with Creality Print, or I'm thinking honestly there's probably something wrong with the files themselves. So it is what it is. But again, it's not a deal killer. We can cover those up and paint. It'll look damaged anyway, so I think it'll work. It's not a deal killer. So we're doing that. I think we've got, how much time do we got left on this one? I think we got like another hour left or something. It's getting pretty close, as you can see there. And if we take we got, and all the surfaces there are turning out pretty good. So again, I don't understand why it's doing that. It just seems like a weird little thing that we got going on there. So it is quite the interesting little thing that we got. So we got that going on. So the prints are turning out pretty good, all things considering. But, getting back to everything. Oh, we got Terry here. Terry's popped in and said hi. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So getting back to the Facebook thing, I looked high and low. I looked into the Palantir and the sphere of contact, and yeah, there's no way to get with any type of live person, live chat, anything. I've sent emails, and of course you get automatic responses. I haven't been able to get contact with anybody at Facebook and say, hey, the video I made was just words, of publicly accessed information and news sources, which it's funny because Facebook allows the links for those, and and these news sources advertise on Facebook, so it's kind of like I wish I could talk to a live person. So anyway, I used to be on Facebook. Again, my wife had her account, and then she had another personal page where I could post this stuff. Well, she had to redo that and do a facial recognition thing. I don't know if anybody have seen this, but for her to use her Facebook, it popped up and it says, you need to do a video selfie. So she had to hold up her phone, she had to turn her head and up and down and left and right again and boom. And then it's all facial recognition. Where's that facial recognition information mapping your face and features? Where's that going to? And why do we need that? Apparently it's some big security thing, and it's like, I don't know, I think there's something a little bit more nefarious going on. I spent enough time working in the military and being overseas and just being alive for 59 years and seeing these things. Yeah, it just doesn't rub me the right way. So, yeah, I'm not on Facebook. So, well, I take that back. I was on Facebook, then the account was suspended. I tried to appeal, couldn't do that. I waited a bunch of time, as was recommended, tried filing or opening up a new account. That didn't work. And again, I used a different email address, different phone number. I used a Korean phone number. That didn't work. And then that was a number of months ago. And then I tried using another email address, different provider, the whole 9 yards. And I was able to make the page. I'm like, hey, it worked. And then 3 hours later, boom, no, it's suspended for advertising. And it's like, I'm not advertising anything. It's just the page is there so I could keep in contact with people on Facebook and overseas in the United States and promote my YouTube page. And I don't sell anything. I'm not a business. It was a personal page. So I don't know. I'm giving up on Facebook. It's just not worth it. But that's kind of concerning that they're mapping out people's faces. And if you look under the terms and agreements of Facebook, that should concern you. And pretty much any app that asks you to do facial recognition because when you do that, when you look at the terms and conditions, you are agreeing to sell that. Where is that going? And when you have accounts like here in Korea, we have that coupon thing with all the sensitive information that was hacked, and 33.7 million people's private information for their shopping information is now in the hands of China. And then there's this huge influx of phishing and attacks and digital attacks and people trying to scam you. It is not even funny. So what are they going to be able to do with the video of your face mapping? Let's put it into AI, and we'll put your face that you scanned to get access to your social media accounts. So we're going to take that, we're going to pump it into an AI video generator, and we're going to make you, and then I can open up whatever accounts I want or recover accounts I want by using, it's scary. It's scary. It's kind of like, click this to prove you're not a robot. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. So anyway, I've pretty much given up on Facebook. Facebook is done. I even went so far as to look back at MySpace, and that is just a horrible train wreck, and it's not even recognizable as what it was decades ago of when it used to be something. So, yeah. Chillin' Connect says, who knows what Facebook wants my face for? Are they planning to clone us? But it's valuable information. That's the problem. It's all of these little bits of information that can be scanned and collected. And, the fact that the thing is, if they get your facial selfie video, they could use that to access and take over your account, because now it's required to, at least, my wife had to update it. It was like, what? And she goes, yeah, is this real? Is this a thing? I checked the link and the whole 9 yards. It ends up as real. Facebook is like, yeah, otherwise you can't use it. So I think we're going to see more of this in the future. And it's going to be very problematic, because if I can get a copy of that, I can put it into AI and I can make you, and now I can use your face. So, I don't know. Chillin' Connect says, click this to prove you aren't a robot. Meanwhile, Facebook is run by robots. Yeah. Oh, and did you see the one thing where the guy went to buy a car and he was filling out the paperwork and all that stuff, and the car salesman printed out the page where it says, click this to verify that you're human, not a robot. And he had to initial it. on paper. The fact that the car salesman didn't think that that was monumentally stupid just shows how far we are falling. It is, and the guy supposedly told the car salesman, said, hey, this is for online. This isn't, you can see I'm human. And if I initial this, it doesn't mean anything because I'm not a robot and it's only for online use. Yeah. And the car salesman didn't think twice. It was kind of like it just flew over his head. Oh, well, you just have to prove you're not a robot and all you got to do is initial. And then they turn the paperwork in. Yeah, that was a little while ago. It was absolutely insane. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that movie, Idiocracy, it's a little rough at times, but if you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, matter of fact, you can watch it on Facebook, or not Facebook, but YouTube for free movie. That was a comedy, but it's becoming a documentary. So yeah, it is, yeah. Kill and connect. Yes, I'll press a piece of paper. It is absolutely crazy. It's kind of like signing when you buy something with your credit card at a store and you have to sign. Nobody checks those. I used to put pictures of fish on there and flowers and all of that, try to do a whole diorama of the countryside and, or put musical notes on there. I've never had any credit card company come back and say, oh, you can't do that. That's not your legal signature. Nobody checks that stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Terry pops in and says, dun dun. Oh, let me get you back up here. Samsung and other television manufacturers have a massive lawsuit against the U.S. because they're using cameras on the television and the Wi-Fi connection to spy on people. I don't know what that would do for them. Me scratching my grapes and watching TV and eating Cheetos. It's, I don't want people watching me through my TV, but yeah, if that's true, that's kind of disturbing. And there's, wow. They even have it to where, and it's been proven, like on your computer, they can hack into your computer and use your camera, like I'm looking at this camera here, and guess what? The light's on, it says, hey, obviously it's on, it's recording, blah, blah, blah. But when I turn the system off, the camera off, they can still access your computer. They can record you without even the light turning on. That's crazy. Or record through your microphone. So that's why I always disconnect the microphone after I use it and I disconnect the camera. Not that I'm doing anything weird or kinky or anything, but I just... the little flip down thing over the camera. Yeah, I'm the person that does that. So, yeah, let's see what else. What else do we got here for comments? George pops in and says, Mike Judge saw the future. Yeah. Chill and Connect says, I did draw a mini Mona Lisa when signing my name. Yeah, and nobody stops you. It's no one, Chill and Connect says, I still find it stupid that Samsung smart fridges exist. Who wants ads on a fridge? Exactly. I mean, and then the fact, or you can have cameras inside the fridge to show you what's in the fridge when I can just open the door and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we need some milk and some dressing and boom, I can close the fridge. How much electricity is that going to save over a year? Maybe a penny? I don't know. I definitely don't want ads on my fridge. That is definitely not the way to go. Terry says they can tell exactly what room you're in and listen to your conversations. Yeah, yep. Who was the guy that he worked for the National Security Agency, NSA, and all that, and all the secret alphabet groups, and then he was talking about how the United States was like. Recording everything, words and videos and the whole 9 yards. What was his name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. And then he had to go to Russia, and he's been there. Snowden. Yeah, that guy. Holy crow. And then you listen to, like, what was I forget the name of the greatest American hacker, ethical hacker, and he does some stuff on some podcasts and talks about and shows what he can do. Holy crap, that will scare you, the bejesus out of you, or whatever deity you follow. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Chillin' Connect says, I unscrewed my laptop to disable the internal mic, also covered my camera too. Yeah. I mean, really, I don't walk around in my banana hammock or anything like that, but still, you have this expectation of privacy that is being overridden more and more. Chillin' Connect says, "Lo, I never heard of it called all of the alphabet groups, but it's true though." Yeah. Hey, let me run over here real quick, and I got to go to. I'm going to get my phone because that's running as a camera that we're seeing here, and it's not plugged in. I don't want to drain the battery, so I'll just take you with me real quick, and we'll bring the phone back. And you can still hear me. And since the print is doing okay, and there it is. So I'll just kind of bring this back into here, and you can kind of see what's going on. And yeah, see that's the little camera that we got going. So we're filming. It's filming the filming of the filming, and then whoever's wants to record and all this stuff, they're filming the film of us filming. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll get back. We'll just go ahead and we'll disable this, by the way. And it should be noted that I turn my phone off at night. So yeah, there's that. Quite the interesting things. We've got Eddie Noy, 321 has popped up here and says, "Season's greetings. Hello and welcome to you as well." Yeah, the phone is working overtime. Yes, it was. Yes. And that's a weird thing with the software that I have. Sometimes the phone will connect, other times it won't. So yeah, I need to plug this baby in, and we're going to use that one there. But yeah, it's kind of amazing on what hackers can do these days, which is absolutely crazy. Let's see. Ed says, warm recently in Japan. Crazy. Yeah, it's a little, we're here in Korea, and it's kind of like unseasonably warm here as well. Except today's kind of cold. It's going to be in the 30s, mid 30s, but it hasn't snowed like it has in the past during the winters, and it's kind of mild right now. So we're still waiting for that other shoe to drop for, the big, harsh, cold Korean winter that hasn't showed up yet. I'm not complaining. So, yeah. George pops in and says, "I want them to look upon my manhood and despair." If they looked on my manhood, they'd probably just laugh and point and laugh. Yeah, but you know what? I don't care. I really don't care. You know what? Because shame is only in your mind, and if it doesn't matter, if you don't mind it, then it's not a big deal. Of course, then again, I have a very troubled history of working in the military and working in prisons and doing shakedowns and strip outs of hundreds of thousands of men over the years, and I am jaded. I am scarred and jaded by the things I have seen, and so seeing a naked body doesn't really do anything for me anymore. Oh yeah, so there's that. Yeah, I've seen too many manhoods in my time, unfortunately. Terry says they're selling, let's get back up here. Get up here. 2 types of credit card devices that you can buy and use on pumps and point of sale in stores, and let you know if a skimmer device to steal your credit card info. Really? Wow, that's kind of a cool thing. I mean, it's bad that we have to have those things, but I mean, that's kind of cool. Chillin' Connects pops up and says he recently bought a dumb phone called a Light Phone 3. Company's ethos is not selling your data and spending less time on social media, screen time in general. It's pretty helpful. Yeah, that's pretty good. Ed says, how's your Charlie horse? My Charlie horse. The horse is a lot better. Good Lord. For those of you who don't know, I was doing a stream and I started getting that a Charlie horse in my calf, in my left calf. Good Lord, it's like somebody hit me with a baseball bat, where it gets all knotted up and it's just kind of like doing that, and it's just, it was crazy. Man, it was still sore that day. So I ended up pounding a few bananas. I took some magnesium, took some zinc and stuff like that. So hopefully I won't have a repeat of that. I do need to eat a few more fruits and vegetables in my diet. So hopefully, hopefully we won't get that. That's been a long time since I had a Charlie horse. So yeah, we're doing much better. Don't wish that on anybody. It's debilitating. It's like getting tased. It's like, well, maybe not like getting tased. I've been tased a number of times, and that's not fun. But Charlie horse comes in second to tasing, and it's just, man. Chill and Connect ends up saying, I hate my horse named Charlie. I get that feeling from time to time. We have jokes. We have jokes. We have jokes. And talking about Charlie horses and anatomy and everything just freezes. Yeah, everything just freezes and knots all up and everything. And then going back to, being jaded and, from working in the military and prisons and so on and so forth, we're going to go into the next topic, which was quite the interesting thing, which was that right there, smuggling drugs into prison. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit, and this will be an interesting little thing. Hey, we've got the bearded printer. He says, hey, how's everybody doing? We're doing good. We are doing good. We're printing out a Warhammer Axe. We talked about being tired of Facebook. I'm writing that off because they wrote me off on their automated account disabled thing. So just sticking to YouTube and doing that. Holy crow. Then we got off track and we talked about a bunch of other stuff. But hopefully you're doing pretty good. Bearded printer. If you're printing, you're doing good. So yeah, we're enjoying that. Part of my history and part of my past has been working in prisons. Besides doing a career in the military, I was a firearms instructor, self-defense, concealed carry instructor. I was a contractor with a number of other instructors to teach military at Fort Carson on weapons manipulation, shoot, move, and communicate, and the MPs up there. We taught about 700-800 folks up there during that time. So I love doing that stuff. But then I worked at the prisons because I needed a job, and that was rough. Man, it's been rough. Bearded Printer says, I haven't been a fan of Facebook for a while now, still on there to stay in touch with people, but never get on. And all I was doing is just trying to promote my YouTube page and documenting, doing some streaming and talking about some crime stats in Korea versus the United States, and it sent some red flags, and they disabled my account, so they are dead to me. So anyway, we got a question from Chill and Connect. How's a Charlie horse compared to being tased? I hope to never be tased. Just curious. Think of it this way. When you get a Charlie horse and like in your calf and it locks up and you just can't move, obviously you can move other parts of your body, but you're stuck. Whatever you were thinking before, kind of like on the stream, we're talking and chatting, and all of a sudden that Charlie horse kind of reached out and grabbed me, and it's like, oh my God. Tasing is like that with 50,000 volts, and you ride that puppy for 8 seconds, your whole body seizes up. And it's just like tasing, and I've been tased a lot, unfortunately, because I had to get certified on tasers. I ended up being an instructor, and you just need to get tased more to do that. Then there's recertification for using tasers and all of that, and it requires more tasing. I think somebody's just into S&M who came up with that. So, but the taser sends 50,000 volts. The amperage is low, but you lock up, and whatever you were thinking before, like I want to do violence on this person, or I'm going to do this or this, as soon as that taser hits you, for the majority of people, it's boom. It changes. It's like, I'm gonna hit, and you're thinking about something. You're not thinking about beating somebody up. It will put you on your ass. It is. I've been tased in the chest. I've been tased in the back, the thigh, the stomach. I've been tased on the back of my legs. It is not. I've been tased where it's been touch tasing, and then fired the probes at you tasing, and then of course the mimicking of the tasing where they kind of put the probes on you, not to puncture you, and do that type of tasing. It is. Ooh, it is not fun. It is not fun at all. Yeah, it is not good. Yeah. So Jill says, so like a whole body Charlie horse. Yeah, it is. It is a whole body Charlie horse, and it is not fun. Ed says people get leg cramps while swimming after eating. I think that's wives' tale. That's a wives' tale. I'm just going to go out on a limb based on my personal experience. I've eaten McDonald's when I was a kid, the whole 9 yards, being in the Army and the military and doing water training and survival training down in Panama and stuff like that. Working with Navy and things like that, doing the treading water for 10 or 15 minutes. I've eaten entire MREs, which is a bazillion calories, and go jump in the pool and do all that stuff. Never ended up getting cramps from eating and swimming immediately afterwards. So, and I've been swimming since I'm a kid. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm different. Maybe I'm just the odd duck out. We'll see. George says, I'll take being tased again over being bitten by a horse. That hurts like hell. I couldn't imagine. Horses have some huge teeth. Good Lord. Bearded Printer says, I've never been tased. Hope you don't. Yeah, you really don't. I believe that's a wives' tales too, talking about the eating and swimming afterwards will give you cramps. I think it's a lack of potassium and some other things. If you work out too hard and you're not fully dehydrated, if you're lacking in some things, you can end up getting cramps. That's a good, somebody look that up. Somebody look it up on like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever. We get to the bottom of that, find out what the deal is. But I never experienced that. But I did experience on that stream. Holy crow, it's been a while. Terry says, I remember cattle prods back in the old days. Yeah, that's basically what a taser is. That'll change your mind. Let's put it that way. That'll definitely change your mind. So, but working with that and working in prisons and getting tased and all that, this is a good transition point to get into how do we smuggle drugs into prison? So, because somebody asked me that question, and it's like, okay, let me tell you. And we got a couple examples. George ends up saying, riding the lightning was not a fun day. Ah, yes, I know. And if you ride the lightning, it's kind of the phrase used if you're getting tased. If you ride it for the full 8 seconds, that's a long time. You might not think eight seconds is a long time. It is a long time when you're getting tased and you're just like, and I love seeing tasing videos because it's so funny. People that are all pissed off, criminals or bad people or whatever it is, and the police are there, hey, stop, no, blah, 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 stop, you're going to get tased, put the knife down. And it's like, whatever they're arguing, and then they rush forward to the cop, and he's like, bing, and the guy's like, and they either fall on their back or their front, and just like a plank, and they hit it. It just brings back so many disturbing memories. It's hilarious. I love it. Ed says, talking about the lactic acid buildup in the legs. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. I mean, lactic acid is usually after, severe exercise and whatever, and it's kind of a long-lasting type of thing. But I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That is a good question. Cramps. Yep. Lactic acid, cramps, and all of that. Matter of fact, let's get Grok into this. All hail Grok. Grok! What is the cause of muscle cramps? And the major cause. What is the cause of muscle cramps? So we're going to check this out and see what Grok says. Or ChatGPT. I'm using Grok. Muscle cramps are sudden involuntary contractions or spasms Sharp pain can last from seconds to minutes, commonly occur in legs, feet, or calves, but can't affect any muscle. Overuse or strain, dehydration or electrolyte imbalance. So there's that. Potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium. That's why I ended up doing the bananas and the magnesium. Disrupts muscle function, cause cramps. Poor conditioning or inactivity. I don't have that problem. Exercising in extreme heat or cold can contribute to that. Issues like poor circulation, nerve compression, diabetes, pregnancy, thyroid. Yeah, I don't have to worry about the pregnancy thing or that other stuff. Low levels of vitamins, B or D or minerals can lead to cramps. But that's kind of like malnourished people. Aging, as they get older, muscles may cramp more easily due to reduced flexibility and other age-related changes. Okay, so, but basically it says that if we address hydration, nutrition, and proper warm-up and all that stuff, it should be good to go. So let's ask the question. If I eat prior to swimming, does that cause cramping? Dun, dun, dun. We're going to be finding out. We'll see what happens. As that's thinking, I take a swig. Y'all can press the like button on the video. I would appreciate that. Because we're going to find out. Oh, here it says, no. Eating before swimming does not typically, so they're giving themselves an out, cause muscle cramps. It is largely a myth that originated from concerns about blood flow diverting from the muscles to digestion, potentially leading to cramps or drowning. Modern medical consensus indicates that while you might experience minor stomach discomfort or indigestion if you eat a heavy meal right before bigger swimming, there's no evidence that it increases the risk of serious muscle cramping or drowning. Oh, okay, and that's from the Mayo Clinic. That said, the optimal comfort during intense swimming or exercise, you wait 1 or 2 hours after a large meal to allow digestion, reducing the chances of nausea or bloating. Muscle cramps are commonly triggered by dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, fatigue, poor conditioning, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, alrighty. So many. How many of you grew up where your parents or grandparents ended up saying, you got to wait a couple hours before you go swimming after you eat, otherwise you're going to drown and get cramps. The truth is, we know the truth now. So we can stop that cycle of lies and we can tell our children the truth. Grandma and grandpa just had it all wrong. So, anyway, let's get back to what we're going to be talking about is how to smuggle drugs into prison. Because the question was, since I worked in prisons for over 11 years, I did prison ministry for a number of years after I stopped working in prisons. I don't know, I just couldn't get out from behind the bars enough until I retired. People ask, how do drugs get smuggled into prison? Is it like the TV shows, like The Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner, or, some of those other prison movies, put it in your prison pocket, hide it up in the orifices that are not these orifices. It does happen, and unfortunately, I've seen drugs and things come out of prison pockets, and it's not something that a normal person would do. But people do it, but then they're criminals, and there's that. So anyway, we're going to take a look here, and we're going to see about that. So let's check this out. One of the ways that we end up seeing people end up bringing drugs into prison is Fremont County corrections officer accused of bringing meth, opiates, and oxycodone into prison. This is an interesting thing because I used to work at Fremont Corrections. Now it's a county corrections, but I worked at Fremont. Corrections officer faces charges after bringing contraband into the Fremont Correctional Facility in Canyon City. Nope, we're not talking about the jail and the sheriff. We're talking about Fremont Correctional Facility where I worked. Now this was back in 2021. I had retired by 2021. I was actually in Oahu. But the 32-year-old Kyle Gotham Tatro handed over a plastic bag containing 4 pens full of drugs, and he was confronted at the prison. I know exactly probably how that worked out. You pull into the prison facility, and it ends up that, let me see if we can, hold on a second. Can I change this? Can I a little bit? There we go. Okay, little OCD thing going on there. So you drive into the East Canyon complex of where there's a number of prisons. And so you go through a checkpoint, and anytime that you're on prison property, you give consent to search, okay? Otherwise, you don't go on prison property. So as soon as you step foot onto prison property, you have given permission, especially if you work for DOC or not, you could be a visitor, you are consenting to search. So he pulls up to the prison, you have the prison parking lot, and then when you get out, you walk up to the main entry, and then there's a guard there, and then they scan your lunch pail and all of this stuff. But when people get caught doing stupid, and they know that you've been doing stupid, like bringing drugs or contraband into prisons, you will get stopped there. They will have canine, and they will have other officers there, and you have to take off your boots. They go through your lunch pail, they frisk you, the whole 9 yards, and they already know that you have stuff on you. So you're cooked. You're a done deal. And yeah, that's your last day of working in prison. So anyway, it ends up, this is indeed one of the ways in which people bring drugs into prison. So we saw here, he had 4 pens. So you take the pen apart, you stuff it full of drugs and contraband, and there it is. 1 pen contained 9.5 grams of meth. 2 pens contained 19.7 grams of black tar, probably black tar heroin, yeah, opiates. The 4th pen contained 9 pills of oxycodone. In the affidavit, he allegedly told authorities he agreed and was paid $250 to bring in the pens. Seriously, you get $3,000 or so plus a month, and you're going to throw that away, not to mention pension, medical, 401k savings, matching, retirement and all that, and you're going to throw that away for $250. Makes no sense. He also admitted to being paid $340 in cash the first time he brought drugs into the facility. Appeared in court on Wednesday. He's currently free on a $2,500 personal bail. He has worked in the Department of Corrections since 2019. So he's been in there for a couple of years, and yeah, he knows what he ended up doing wrong. So. But that's one of the ways that they would do it. I've seen people, or have been around people who worked in the same prisons that I worked at, get caught bringing in drugs, and they will bring it in their lunch pails, they will bring it in their shoes. They take their shoe and they haul it out and they put in a bunch of drugs and then put the insole back in there, and they just walk right into the prison. But when you show up to work, and then they'll do it from time to time, and especially, random checks. And you'll have a canine dog, and the canine dog will go up to you and sniff you and your lunch and all that stuff thing. And if it alerts, holy crow, everybody's like, ding, and you're looking at them, oh God, gotcha. And, for the average person, it's an inconvenience. But for the people that are smuggling drugs, they'll smuggle it on their persons, they'll put it in their wallets, they will put it in their food, they put it in the pens like this guy ended up doing. Yeah, it's a wide variety of things. And then the fact that you have staff, prison guards, they will sometimes they got to drive around a fence area, and then they'll stop and they'll talk to somebody in the tower, and then they'll throw something through the fence if it's not a solid fence, chain link fence, and it's in near the big yard. Or they might end up doing rounds around the facility on the outside of the fence, and so they can just go to their car, they can get the drugs, and as they go and check the outside perimeter, they'll throw the drugs over the fence into the big yard, the exercise yard, and so when the inmates go back out there, that's how they end up getting drugs that way. But staff they get compromised and they'll bring drugs into the facility. It is a fact of life, and unfortunately, the quality of people that you have working for the Department of Corrections sometimes isn't that high. Sometimes you get a bunch of knuckleheads working as guards. So there's that. But interesting ways to also bring drugs into prison is kind of like what we see here, is this next one. Court documents detail how a man tried to smuggle a burrito of drugs into Buena Vista. It was a few hours away from where we're at. A man arrested for smuggling drugs did it in a burrito in his lunchbox. Yeah. Trevor Martineau, 27, arrested under probable cause of Chaffee County, smuggling narcotics. And Lusk received more information on 2 additional inmates from the facility. So, yeah, the warrant to place a vehicle tracker on his car, which a judge approved. A vehicle tracker. So they must have had some really good intel. And I will tell you, inmates will dime you out. It's a fact of life. So anyway, he's walking towards the facility and acting as though he had an injured leg. The investigators approached him and escorted him to their office to be interviewed. So yeah, you know he was done. They asked if he was carrying illegal narcotics. He was. In his lunchbox, they inspected it and found a plastic baggie protruding from the large burrito. Yep, he said they were drugs. There's 91 grams of meth, 26 grams of heroin, 46 strips of Suboxone, a brand medication used to treat opiate addiction. He's just helping people get off drugs. Highly addictive active ingredients, 10 strips of something else, and 6 thumb drives. In case you're wondering what the thumb drives are, it probably had various people in not much clothing. Let's just put it at that. He told that he was paid $1,000 for picking up the drugs, which he said was located in his dresser. The wife signed a consent to search, and they confiscated the money, which they did. He was arrested and all of that. And yeah, so you have all these charges. You have first-degree unlawful distribution of a controlled substance, unlawful distribution of a controlled substance, unlawful giving drugs, controlled substance for basically each one of those drugs that he brought in was its first-degree charge on each of those. So yeah. So now the question is, what happens when somebody brings drugs into the facility? For the longest time, they would just let them go. They would allow them, it's because they didn't want any bad press. And I'm speaking from seeing this. When I worked in the Colorado Department of Corrections, there was people that caught bringing drugs into the facility, and because they didn't want any bad press, it was like, here's the thing. You got caught. We caught you bringing drugs into the facility. We don't want any bad press, so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to give you the choice. You can resign, and then that way none of this gets out into the news, and then you don't get charges, and that's your slap in the wrist. But the problem is it's not good. And too many times that has happened where you have people that have brought contraband into prisons, and it's not just drugs, it's cell phones. The whole cell phone thing has been a deal of bringing cell phones into prisons and so on and so forth, and getting messages. It used to be sneaking messages, from gangs and, to their members that are inside the prison, and, pass notes and messages and stuff like this. Now it's cell phones and drugs and so on and so forth. So they didn't want the bad press, so oftentimes they would just tell the people you're fired, you have to, not fired, but you're resigning, and you'll never work for the state of Colorado again, and then that's it. We'll be quiet about it and no one will know either way, and we keep the bad press off of the Colorado Department of Corrections, which gets a lot of bad press anyway, and a lot of times it's warranted. Too much of that has happened. But realistically, from what we were told when we went through the basic training for learning how to be a guard and subsequent concurrent training, is that you can get charged for everything that you do. And a lot of people don't get charged with that. Some people do, but more often than not, in the experience in my over 11 years of working in prisons and then a number of years doing prison ministry and seeing these things, more people get let off than are charged. So there's a lot of resignations and not many people get their feet held to the fire. I think you should just hold their feet to the fire and burn them. Let's see. Ed says, isn't it suspicious when someone brings a horse or a mule into the jail? Oh my. This isn't a Mexican jail. A mule. Talking about mules, drugs come in through not only staff that get compromised, and what happens is that the compromise with inmates compromising prison guards, and usually it's females, but you'll get some males that will get compromised and bring drugs like we seen with these two people, but the majority that I saw were women. It ends up, the inmate gets with the staff member and, hey, can you give me a piece of paper? Can you give me a paper clip? Can you give me a pen? Mine broke and I don't have any money on my books. I don't have, can you give me a few sheets of paper? So there's this kind of, hey, how you doing? I really appreciate you. You're looking good today. And they build you up. And then they ask you for something small and inconsequential. Like you said, it could be a pen, it could be something. And it's like, okay, you have a pen. Get out of here, whatever. But they can use that against you. And so they'll just push it a little bit more. And then it's like, hey, I noticed that sandwich you got there. That looks pretty good. I haven't eaten. I missed lunch. I was working, blah, blah, blah. And there are staff that will give food to inmates. And then it goes from there. And it's like, so they're pushing the boundaries more and more and more and more. And eventually to the point of where it's like, as soon as you bring something in that matters, like say it's money, or it's a thumb drive, or it's, some message or whatever that's coded and whatever, they got you. Because what they'll end up doing is saying, hey, remember that letter that I gave to you to send to my girlfriend? Well, yeah, that really wasn't it. It was information going to my gang, and I'm going to turn you in unless you bring in pictures of people in varied states of undress, or you're going to bring in some other stuff. Usually it starts out small, and then it just keeps building up and building up and building up. So that way it's like, hey, you're not supposed to give me food. You're not supposed to do this. You delivered messages. If I turn you in, you're going to get fired. So I don't want to do that. So what's going to end up happening is that you're going to end up, just bring me this stuff here. Give me some of these over-the-counter medications. Bring those in, and bring this in, and bring that in. Then it elevates to drugs, cell phones, chargers, the whole 9 yards. And then it comes into let's say the after-hours extracurricular activities. And usually that's associated, since I worked in a male prison, usually the females were more apt to be compromised in that way. And then once that's done, then they got you. They have them. So if you knock boots with an inmate or have any type of extracurricular activities with an inmate, you're done. Because then that's where the heavy stuff comes in. That's where they're like, okay, you need to go see this person, pick up some black tar heroin, pick up some pills, some coke, some meth, some weed, or whatever it is. All of that stuff is on the table now. Because if you don't, now it's even worse, because now they have a history and nothing's going to happen to the inmate. And here's the problem, is that the male inmates that sleep with a female guard, that's it. It's done. And I have seen it, not seen the actual act, but I've seen it where it ends up that the inmate has compromised the female guard, and they end up having a physical relationship, and then the inmate says, well, you got to bring in all this stuff and the phones and the drugs. And then it's like, well, hey, that's really good. I'm really sorry for this. I really care for you as a person. They might even pretend to have a romantic relationship, and that'll go on for months and months. But then it can get really ugly, because then it's like, oh, damn, my homeboy, my gang members found out about it. And if you don't have relations with them like you do with me, they're going to turn you in, and I can't do anything about it. So now she's being passed around like a piece of meat, and then has to bring in more stuff. So again, it is just, and I wish I could say this was just from news sources, but it's things that I've actually seen in the prisons that I've worked at. And I worked at Colorado Fremont Corrections, and I worked at Territorial Correctional Facility. So yeah, it's a good learned lesson. Don't do nice things for people. You can do nice things for people, but bringing in drugs and phones and all that, that's not nice. Those aren't nice things. Those are things that you shouldn't do. And so they are not nice. You can still be nice and have high standards. But the majority of the time, it's the women that get compromised in male prisons. Conversely, if there's a female prison, and I've never worked in a female prison, but I had a buddy of mine who worked in a female prison in Pueblo, Colorado, who came to work at Fremont later on. And he told the stories, oh my gosh, the males get compromised. And again, as soon as there any type of physical relationship that goes on, it's on like Donkey Kong. You know, they've got the guard wrapped around their middle finger to bring in drugs or contraband or phones or whatever it is. And if it ends up, even though the inmate is like, hey, let's knock boots and do this, whether it's a male or a female, the staff member is always at fault. There is no consensual sex in prison, is what it comes down to. So yeah, it's at least in Colorado. I don't know about other states, but there is none. And especially with staff and inmates. Ooh, I mean, to get to prison, you have to do a lot of bad stuff. And could you imagine, the diseases? Oh my gosh. I mean, you got hepatitis A, B, C, D, and Z. It is just horrible on, MRSA, HIV, the whole 9 yards. I mean, besides CLAP and the normal stuff, which isn't normal at all, there's some people who have got infected and it'll be with them for the rest of their lives because they didn't have boundaries. So that's one way. Since we talked, let's get back onto sandwiches and bringing drugs in your lunch. There was actually a territorial correctional facility. There was a guy who worked in the gym, correctional officer. He worked in the gym. It was back in the day when, you could do your time and then you could pick the position of where you're going to work, and you would work there for as long as you wanted. And the gym was one of those places where it was like, you know what, that's a great job, because you just hang around, you just kind of issue out some weight belts or basketballs or whatever. It's kind of a cush job. It ends up, this guy had been bringing in drugs for years in his lunch, in his Subway sandwiches. And he had worked for DOC for, it was coming up on 15 years or so? It was over 10 years. He had been there for a minute. And then he got caught, and then the amount of drugs, so they tracked him, and they did the investigation. He brought in so much that it was like, he didn't get charged. Because of the severity was so bad, and at that time it would put such a bad light on the Colorado Department of Corrections. It disappeared like a fart in the wind. How does that happen? It was unreal. It was like, holy crow. And it's only because he had so much time in DOC and he had been doing this for obviously years that if that got out into the press, it would be a media nightmare. So yeah, there's some... Working in prisons is a lot of drama, Yeah. George says, run, it's Fleece Johnson. Yeah, it's run away hard and run away fast. And matter of fact, let's take a look at some prisons. We'll take a look at the prisons that I worked at, and I'll show you how easy it is to get drugs into these prisons. So this is going to be interesting. So let's pop over here. So we have the Google Maps, and this city here is Cannon City, Colorado. Cannon City, Colorado, which, in case you didn't know, was also the Klan capital of Colorado. I kid you not. It was the Klan capital. It was. And I moved there with my Korean wife because, I lived in Pueblo, and Pueblo, Colorado's, it's a little rough as well. But we moved to Canyon City because, hey, it's closer to work. I wouldn't have to drive so much. So we moved to Canyon City. And it wasn't until after we moved that people told me, oh, yeah, by the way, Canyon City, Colorado was the clan capital of Colorado back in the day. Good Lord, I never would have moved there if I had known that. So anyway, let's get back on how to smuggle drugs into prison. So this is Canyon City, Colorado, and you've got CSP, Colorado State Penitentiary, you have Centennial, which is there. You've got Arrowhead, you've got Skyline, you've got 4 Mile Correctional, there's Skyline. Here is Fremont, which I worked there, but the first prison I worked at was over here on the edge of town. Now you notice all these little blue lines, those are public roads. So there's Royal Gorge Avenue, which goes into the highway. All of these are in blue are public roads, and there is the prison. So you have public roads. And this is a mountain right here, a mountain range, and you can overlook and you can see into the prisons. And there is the prison parking lot. And then over here, there's the old warden's house, which is that right there. And there's another thing, and then you have the prison museum that is here. But all of these are residential. So and you have a guard tower that is right there, which is right close to the museum. But people of nefarious backgrounds would go over here and they would come up into this parking lot and along this wall, even in the prison museum area, because it's not like it's fenced in or anything, and they would throw drugs over this wall into this area here, and that's a softball field. That's the weight bench area. So how easy is it to get drugs into a facility? If you got a halfway decent arm, you can just throw it, from this side of the wall onto this side here. And every day we would have to go through, people would walk through the big yard and they would find containers or, tennis balls with cuts in them that had drugs in them and stuff like that, all of that. So yeah, it's not hard. You had people that would come along the street here, and this is a guard tower here, but it's decommissioned, it's no longer being used. So people would walk up out of here and nobody's watching. And they would throw, again, packages of drugs over the wall, and that's a little area there. So it's real super easy. And then you have other areas here. You got a street, you could actually walk over here and throw drugs into this back area here, which is where the dog training program was for territorial. The inmates would be out there training dogs, and so, a lot of drugs came over the wall that way. There's nobody in the old warden's house. It's just, you could walk right up to the door. It's no big deal. This guard tower here, wasn't really used. This one here was used, but this corner one, there was times where most of the time it wasn't used, especially during graveyard shift and all that. So, people could walk right up here and just throw stuff over the fence and get into it. Here's another interesting thing, is that if we if we zoom in, there's Highway 50, and out of the mountain, you see this little ditch here. That ditch is filled with water. So this water ditch runs, and it runs right through the prison. So there it is, an open ditch, water running through the middle of the prison, right through the middle. And it goes out, and then it goes underground, and then it goes underground, and then that's pretty much it. It goes somewhere underneath, but it disappears under the nether regions of the prison. But there was a number of times where people would go up here, and then they have access, because you can walk right up to here. There it is. There's an old broken down tower that sits up on here that is actually, let me see if we can we do this? I think we can. Check this out. Can we? I think we can. Oh, there it is. There's the old guard tower there. And there's a prison complex. So, and then right up here, right up in that area there, that's where that waterway that goes through the prison. Now there's a fence and everything, but again, what people would end up doing is you could actually go up to this area here and throw stuff into the yards, and the inmates do yard work. So that's another way that drugs would go into the prison. But if you go up here, there's that little waterway that flows right through here. And if we go down here, I'll show you, let me see, one more, maybe two more. There it is. But that little trench of water goes right back here to the back gate. And let's see, can we zoom in? I think we can. And there it is. And so that's the back gate. There's a tower there. I've worked in that tower many times. And then you have this little small building here. And then the water that comes through goes into an area, I think it's like right in here. It's either on this side or this side, I forget. I think it's on this side. Yeah, it's this side right there. Because, we can't zoom in anymore. But that water comes right in through there and it goes into the facility. So, yeah, it ends up that, again, if we take a look at this, that's the ditch. And this is the wall of the prison, and there is a grate there. So it's kind of hard to see it, but there's a grate there, and they had to put a grate there that would hopefully filter out any large bags, because people would put drugs in small packages and float them down the river into the facility, and when the inmates, would have access to be able to get into there. It's kind of a big ditch, but I mean, that's how we've caught a number of drugs through that river, through that little waterway that cuts through the entire prison. So yeah, and cell phones, drugs, blah, 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 and all that stuff. So yeah, it is quite the interesting little thing. Let's see, what is some of the other things that we've got? This is Cell House 5, which is intake. So sometimes you have inmates go from one prison to another, and if you don't have enough time in the day, they'll be bused to here and they'll be temporarily housed there. This is where the prison pocket comes in. People will have drugs in other orifices of their bodies. They go here and then they will do deliveries that are planned out beforehand. And that's how they can get drugs from one facility to another, is through the inmates going from one facility to another in their prison pocket. If you don't know what that is, then look it up. It is not a fun thing. Definitely not a fun thing. Besides bringing staff, bringing contraband into prisons, I mean, that's the way they do that there. So this is really bad because you have so much public access, especially hours of darkness, on this facility. This is a horrible place as far as trying to keep drugs out of that facility. So, because it's not isolated, it's right on the edge of town, and you can, after hours, you can walk right up to that. With the other prisons, it's a little bit more difficult. So, for example, see, there's Colorado State Penitentiary. And when you come in, you can come off of Highway 50 and you could drive right onto this county road, Evans Road. And there is visitor parking lot. And then there is also, there's the main gate right there that you drive through. So as soon as you turn off of the highway onto Evans Road, you're on prison property. So they can check you. So visitors will bring in their prison pockets. And as they park here, they process through the visiting center here, and then they'll get on buses and they'll be bused to the different prisons to meet their significant others, where they will pass on said contraband from their prison pockets and whatever. And they go through metal detectors and all that. And sometimes at the this place here, they'll have canines, random canine checks of the visitors that come into the facilities. So that's one way that they kind of stop drugs from being brought in, but it doesn't stop it altogether. And the fact that all of these prisons are within this area here, is better, but it's still problematic because like this is all part of, there's the old dairy road. They used to have a wild horse program that they would train horses, but this is a public road. Mackenzie Road right here is Mackenzie Avenue is a road that I would take on the way to work. So yeah, and all of this land, it doesn't take much to go from here and to throw contraband and packages on the prison side of the house. There's, it's not hard at all. And the inmates work that land. So they can pick up that contraband and stuff like there. You get down here, Reliance Self-Storage. That's prison property right there. So a lot of this, you have personal farms and things like this, but when you start getting into here, you start getting into the prison property, and it doesn't take much to get anything onto the prison property. So like right here at Fremont Correctional Facility where I ended up working, there's the back gate, and all of these lands here, these farms, are prison property farms, for corn, for cattle and things like that. But yeah, you can travel and, it doesn't take much for somebody to walk and be able to throw contraband into the prison area. But there's another problem that DOC didn't consider, and that problem is probably a more technical one, and those are drones. Now, being an electronics technician, that I dealt with cameras and fiber optics, stun fences, and as soon as you touched a stun fence, it would you get lit up with 50 or 70,000 volts. The cameras would like boom boom and zoom in on you. It would go to the master control station where on big huge screens it would pop up and show those two views and say, yeah, Joe touched the fence, he's getting hit or whatever. Yeah, we did all that stuff. But the problem is, that's great for somebody who's walking in and trying to throw drugs over the wall. But if you have a drone, it is so much easier to fly a drone and drop drugs into a facility. That was a huge problem just before I quit working at the Department of Corrections. And even when I did prison ministry, it continued to be an even bigger problem. And while I was working for DOC, me and my boss, we recommended and said, hey, I was flying drones at the time. I was like, hey, there's DJI and drones, other companies and stuff like that, where you can carry things in, fly the drone some ungodly amount of distance, drop the drugs or paraphernalia, and then fly out, and you would never know. Besides it being, 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear this, the drone flying. You disable the lights on the drone. I could set up waypoints on my drone software. I kid you not. I actually did this in a briefing, and I took my drone software and I said, hey, what I could end up doing is I could park my car here on Mackenzie Avenue. Let's say I just go over here and I just pull off on the side of the road here, and I could fly my drone all the way over here to Fremont Correctional Facility, and I could drop drugs either in the exercise yard. You got 2 softball fields there. I could drop them off in the metal shop area where a number of inmates work. The back gate area, you have the dining facility. You end up having the fiberglass. I could drop it here where inmates have access or whatever. I could drop it behind the cell houses. I could drop drugs anywhere using a drone. And I could drop off multiple packages. So I could drop stuff off at Fremont. I could end up going and flying to 4 Mile. I could fly to Skyline. I could go to all of these prisons within, and the drone would fly for, good Lord. I could hit all of those in one night, easily. I could probably hit, let's say, from over here on Mackenzie, I could fly over here and hit Fremont. I could hit Arrowhead. I could even fly so far as to, I could hit all these. Centennial. That's a no big deal. You could fly miles on a drone, and it's no big deal. So yeah, I could end up going here to the end of this street here on Grandview, and then there's some, there's some there. There's actually some houses there. Well, actually, that used to be a prison there, but that ended up they stopped doing that. It was an international training center now. It was a prison, but I can come over here and there's residential, and I could just park off to the side, fly my drone out of my truck or my car or whatever, zoom, and I have access to everything. I could even fly, come to Highway 50 and on over here on 67, and a person could fly a drone and hit all of the prisons that way. So anyway, we did this little briefing, and it ends up talking about, saying, hey, drones are a problem. Staff and guards are saying that, hey, during graveyard shift, we're hearing drones, we're seeing flashing lights. I guess people that are flying the drones weren't smart enough to disable the lights on the drone. I don't know, it's just kind of an obvious thing. You disable the lights and then you could fly, and I could set up a program or a flight plan that would automatically fly. I could set a flight plan so I could just hit go and the drone would lift off and go, and I could land it wherever I wanted. And of course, if it gets close to an area, then it can just hover, and then I can take manual control and say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go over here and fly to the weight yard. I'm going to fly to the end of the softball field and by the soccer goal, and I could drop packages, within 3 or 4 feet. You've seen what drones can do in Ukraine. Yeah. So we did this briefing and talking about drones, and it ends up that, they're like, yeah, no, we're not interested. And it's like, well, you better get interested, because we're getting more and more activity, more reports from more prisons about drones. And they they didn't want to admit it. And again, it was this whole thing about, well, it's going to be bad press. It's not going to be good for us. And it's like, no, you don't have to tell the press anything, but we need to look at ways in which we can combat drones being used to bring in contraband. And there are ways that you can do that you can disable drones. You have the gun with the ray gun and shoot the drone out of the air, or the nets, you can do that. There's a number of things that you can end up doing. You could signal jamming. I mean, that's a little high tech. It's kind of out of the budget. But the fact was, at that time, it was just they didn't embrace those countermeasures, but the inmates were. And the people on the outside that had drones, they're making big money, delivering drugs instead of having to compromise a staff member or a guard. Now you just have a guy with a drone, and hey, $500 for each run. Can you imagine? How many runs could you do into a prison using a drone in a month? Holy crow. Yeah, it is a problem. And then that's why it ends up saying it's a no. That's why you see prisons around there that suddenly you would see signs popping up and saying, oh, don't fly drones here. That was the reaction. That was the plan of what they ended up saying. Oh, well, we'll just put up signs saying that, it's illegal to fly drones into our prisons. Do you think somebody who's delivering drugs or is, i.e., a criminal, is going to follow that sign and say, oh, I guess I better not fly my drugs into the prisons because of the sign? Absolutely crazy. So yeah, there's a number of ways that you can get drugs into prison. They're the old school way of mules or family members that are visiting inmates and put it in their prison pocket, or inmates transferring drugs from one facility to another as they're being transferred. There's that. Oh, and then there's the other way. Every prison that it ends up, they have to have the food and everything. Let me show you this here. And again, we're not showing you anything that can't be seen through, public knowledge. You can Google warehouse, prison warehouse, and boom, right up here, there's the warehouse. So as soon as you get off of Highway 50 right here, if you went to the right, that would go east towards Pueblo, and of course, if you keep going, to the left or west, that would hit Canyon City, Colorado. But yeah, you go down here and all the food that gets delivered to all the prisons, all the toilet paper, all the stuff goes to this warehouse here. And of course, inmates work there as well. And so stuff gets smuggled into the boxes that get delivered to the warehouse, and then it gets distributed, and the inmates, because yeah, you have inmate workers that will deliver food, and all the food that goes to the prisons that gets made, all of that goes through this warehouse. And so yeah, that's an avenue of approach of where you will find drugs. So yeah, from there, they'll have trucks that will go to CSP. And they'll deliver the food and all the other things, and then they'll go over here. They go to Centennial, they'll go to Skyline, they'll go to Arrowhead. Skyline is over here, and then you got 4 Mile out in this area here. So everything gets delivered to all of these prisons from that warehouse, so that's just another avenue of approach for everything within that complex facility. And even the stuff that goes from this warehouse will go to Territorial Correctional Facility. So again, it's a huge way, it's a huge delivery route for everything, including drugs and contraband. And so, yeah. And then you throw on top of that, you throw drones and technology and all that. And now that you have phones that can be like super small, yeah, it is absolutely crazy on what you can do. George Valentine says, what was the weirdest thing you ever heard of being smuggled into prison? The weirdest thing? That's a good question. The weirdest. I would have to say toys. Toys. Of adult toys being smuggled in. That was kind of the weirdest thing. In a male prison, it was an adult member toy, which is kind of like, why would you want to smuggle that into a prison full of men when men have those? That just seemed odd to me. That was probably the weirdest thing smuggled in. But usually, pens, papers, contraband, drugs, cookies, sandwiches, stuff like that. There was times where prisons would end up coordinating with fast food places or local pizza joints, and where the inmates could buy pizzas, and local business would build and make a bunch of sandwiches or pizzas, and then the inmates would buy those, and of course DOC gets a cut of that, and they were pretty expensive, but the inmates would do that, and so every single sandwich, every single pizza had to be inventoried and checked and all that stuff. So there's that. But yeah, I would have to say that was the weirdest thing. But usually the norm was contraband, drugs, over-the-counter medicines, obviously black tar heroin, stuff like that. Marijuana was kind of a thing, but it was more something that was more compactable, that had more punch, and that's why I say like heroin, black tar heroin, things like that. Some of those things, some pills, those things were more popular than stuff like marijuana because that takes up more space. So yeah, but that was kind of the weirdest thing. But I had seen people smuggling in glasses, reader glasses, things like that, comic books, books, smuggle books in for inmates. I don't know why. But nothing really weird. But yeah, it's just not, prison isn't good. Don't do any bad things to go into prison. It's just not good. So yeah, you could make a ton of money. If you flew drones, you could make a ton of money of flying stuff into prison. And especially back at the time, now this was a minute ago, that I worked at Fremont Correctional Facilities and in that correctional complex for the state of Colorado. And again, the big thing was drones. And we told them, you're going to have to come up with something, because it's, I can fly a drone. Nobody knows who I am. Even if you catch the drone, if I was smart, I would have a drone, I'd wear rubber gloves, I wouldn't register the drone to my name, that would be stupid. But I could get a drone, and even if the drone got caught, I'm out a couple of $100 for a drone, no big deal. When I've been making, $400 or $500 a drop each time, how many times could you do that? Holy crow, it's just. And then there was times on these prisons, like let's take a look back here. If we go back into this prison complex area of all these prisons, because you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you had, there was another one. That was the other one here, but this was actually a women's prison here, but they made an international training center. But all of this here, holy crow, you could make bank doing that. If I was going to smuggle drugs into prisons, I would do it with a drone. I would disable all the lights on the drone. And of course, you'd have to contact somebody to get you the drugs so that you could fly them into the prisons. So again, it would be, you'd have to meet up somehow. But, if you really want to do it, and then you have your thumb drives, which, inmates have tablets. So now they have access to whatever, videos or music or, various stages of undress or whatever, pictures and videos you could deliver, things like that. There's so much that you could do. And, that's what we ended up saying, especially, but they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. It was too far beyond them. It was like, no, you're going to have something. Just like you got cell phone jammers, you could have jammers for drones within that area, but you're talking some big money there. So I think eventually it'll get to the point of where some company's going to come up with some stuff and say, hey, we're going to have a jammer for the frequencies that drones normally fly on to protect that area. That would be optimal. But DOC isn't known for being forward thinking. I'm just letting you know. Or having the smartest people in their ranks of employment. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, it's some very, very interesting things. And again, it's not rocket science. You've got Pueblo ends up having what is it? Women's correctional prisons in Pueblo, Colorado. Let's take a look at in the map thing here. So let's go back to the desktop here. So, we already talked about a number of prisons. So you got La Vista Correctional, which is, there's Pueblo, Colorado, and so La Vista Correctional Facility, ICCS, I'm not sure what that one is, San Carlos, which is kind of like the loony bin place. Youth Offender System is there. That's San Carlos Correctional. So you've got a number of prisons. Here's the women's prison. So that ends up being that? No. Unless that's like an old picture of Pueblo. But yeah, especially in these places here, holy crow. I actually did training in La Vista. I did training at San Carlos because that's close to 13th Street. And I used to live on 13th Street, which was over around in this area. So you have I-25 is this highway here, and then you get off and there's 13th Street. Let me see if I can, and actually we lived on 12th Street. Well, I don't actually want to go to show the house that I used to live at, but look how close it is to the youth offender system, there. And then of course San Carlos, which is the loony bin place. And look how much public access there is to these areas here. It's just absolutely crazy. It is so easy to get drugs into a prison, especially if they're in a in a city setting close to residential or anywhere that there's public access. There's a number of other prisons that are in Colorado as well, but I mean, it's just, those are the main ones. The main ones are in the East Canyon Complex, which is the prisons that we talked about in Canyon City. And we're not even talking about the prisons, the state prison, or not the state, but the federal prison. So let's take a look at that. We're kind of going down memory road here. This is kind of fun. So here, let's get that over there, close that. So we got Canyon City, Colorado. We know that we got the prison over here on this, which is close to the Royal Gorge there. And then we go here, you got a bunch of prisons. But if you go down here, and they end up going to Florence, which I used to live right around, there's the golf course, kind of around the golf course area. Matter of fact, Bear Paw Road, we come up, there's 67, come up Bear Paw Road, and we come up here, here's the golf course, Sumo Avenue, actually lived on Sumo Avenue, but right up the street from Highway 67, so I lived somewhere around on this street on Sumo Avenue. We had view of this golf course here, of this hole, and if you go up 67 and you go up here, there's another prison. That's a federal prison. And there's the Florence State Penitentiary there, and then you have the Supermax, ADX, which is right there. So you had ADX, which is the worst of federal prisons, are there. And then you had Florence there, and then you had Florence FCI here, which is a number of, all buildings full of inmates in federal. And then you had like a minimal kind of prison here. But yeah, look how close that is to, public access roads. We would walk from here and we would walk down this street, and you could actually go on here on Rincon Road, and you could go over here to Siloam Road, and you could overlook and see where the prisons are, the lights of the prison and everything. So how easy is it to get contraband into those prisons? Obviously, the people in ADX are the worst of the worst, and they're under lockdown for like 23 and a half hours a day. But these other prisons here, yeah, it's Florence Penitentiary, there's that. It doesn't say the classification on that. Florence High, no, it doesn't. So, so you got a number of prisons that are in Colorado, especially around Canyon City, Florence, Florence, Colorado, and things like that. And then you got a handful in Pueblo. So there's a huge inmate population there. Not to mention the federal prisons that are there. Absolutely crazy stuff. So there you have it. What we ended up doing is kind of going over some of the information that we talked about. We talked about why I don't do Facebook anymore, because of the faceless automated banning and no talking to anybody. I really just hate that. So we talked about that. We talked about Warhammer, how we're printing out our mask. Not our mask. We're not doing the mask. We're doing the axe. So we're printing that out. And then we talked about smuggling drugs into prisons and all that stuff. And yeah, we had a good time. You could do a lot of damage. But be a good person. I know you all won't. But just don't smuggle drugs into prison. Just don't do it. I highly advise that you don't do that. So we talked about those things there. And again, we're printing up some stuff. Is it still printing? I think we are. I can even check it on my phone with the Creality print app. And, oh, it did print. And it says it's finished. Okay. So there's let me see if we can pull this up on the phone. That's what's cool that I like about 3D printing, is that you can end up You can watch the print, you can pause the print, you can stop the print, you could change some things on your print, but yeah, you can end up actually seeing how that printed out, and it's all good. There was one piece that wasn't working, but let me go get that, and I'll be right back, and I'll show you. So yeah. So nice, so nice. So let's see, how did it turn out? Not bad. Not bad. Oh, looking a lot better. I don't know what the deal was with that one piece or those pieces because we ended up, all of those look really nice. And a 0.16, and excuse me, we got our little bag of parts. There was one piece that didn't work out. And so I had to exclude that, and it ended up, we'll have to print that out on another plate. But let's see if we can move this on here. Oh, look at that, it just came right off the plate. And look at the clarity on that. That just came out great. Super nice. Cool. 8% infill, adaptive cubic. So we got that here. Let's see if we can show you how, boom, off the plate, and the support, it just falls off. It's like butter. That's at 0.24 top Z distance. Oh, that is beautiful. That is nice. I like that. Let's see. We got George ends up saying, I'm looking forward. Get back up there. Come on. Looking forward to heading to Bass Pro Shop to get some of the last of my Christmas shopping done. Ah. It has been a minute since I've been at a Bass Pro Shop. I kind of miss that. Of course, I also miss some Walmart, to be honest with you. I miss Home Depot. This part came out really nice. Look at that. Nice, crisp and clean. All of that. Good, good. But I miss some Home Depot. They don't have Home Depots here. It ends up that you have to go to an individual store. So again, it's not a Home Depot type of thing. But yeah, oh, that came out nice. Another nice one. Ooh. And this part here, oh, that came out nice as well. Again, the little bit of extra time at 0.16 millimeters for the layer height is, you gotta love it. Oh, look at that. Good, good, good. A little bit of stringing. I'm thinking about the when you do your supports, you can see that right there, how it just kind of goes back and forth like that. You can actually change that, and I saw some people playing around with that and did concentric. So I'm thinking about on a test print to check that out and maybe do concentric to see if we can get a little bit of a better overhang than what we get there. I mean, it's not bad, but just kind of interesting. And again, the ding just came right off. And I didn't do any variable layer heights on this. Just love it. Ding. That is so nice. So nice. Except for that one piece. And then all of these will just kind of have to clean the build plate. All of those clips just came right off. So yeah. George asked a question, how hard is it to buy lumber in Korea? It's not too hard. You would have to go, again, you'd have to go to a store to do that. I've actually seen a couple of places that have lumber yards. I found out through the local arts and crafts center on the military base that they use a local lumber yard to purchase the wood that they use in their hobby shops and stuff. So found them. They're close to Piontek. Prices are okay. It's not too bad. But like where we live and everything. Did I drop something? I think I did. I thought I did. Is that it over there? No. Maybe I didn't. Or maybe it dropped in here. I don't know. I'll have to go through the trash. Maybe something dropped in there by mistake, one of those little clips. But lumber, yeah, not a lot of lumber stuff. I guess if I wanted to build some shelves and everything, or maybe some furniture, or a desk, or something like that, I would be able to do that, buy the lumber, go to the military base, and then use their arts and crafts center. I'd have to get a little safety class on how to use the power tools and all that stuff. It is probably, the wood shop in there is awesomely stocked. Let's put it that way. They got planers, table saws, joiners. I mean, you could do any type of furniture that you wanted to build, you could do that there. And then they also have arts and crafts. They got resin, stuff like that. So yeah, it's some pretty good stuff. So yeah, we'll have to clean this up before we do the next print. And there's a number of people that work on the military base, soldiers, and they'll do little side gigs and they'll build furniture. So if you wanted something, you could do that as well and commission people to build some stuff for you or whatever. There's a number of people that do that and do some really good work. So yeah, they also have 3D printers. I can't remember the printers, but they're bed slingers and they're kind of old. But yeah, it's definitely a thing that you could end up doing. Okay, now we're going to go back because we did have that one failed print area. So I want to since it's on my mind, I want to make sure that I get this before. And which one did we end up doing? We did plate 3, which is this one here. And this was the piece that failed. So for whatever reason, I got to take that and I'll move that to the plate over here. And then of course we'll end up doing that. We can slice that plate up and we should be good to go on that. So hopefully that'll print out. Yeah, this one that ended up on that prior plate, I guess it had some problems, so it didn't have a real good contact. Maybe I'll reorientate that. I don't know. Let's see. No, that's where I want it. That's where I had it on the other one. Maybe I could do that. So I'd have a little bit more contact space. Let's try that and see what happens. We'll slice that up there. See how that turns out. It's going to be a little fugly on that bottom. I don't know. We'll give it a try. We'll see what happens. So that one will be done, and that'll take us 4 hours and 10 minutes. So that's not too bad. And that'll be plate number 4. And then plate number 5 is going to be the big one here because it has all those pieces there. And that's going to be like 8 hours. But for this one, yeah, we should do pretty good. Alrighty. With that being said, I think we will finish this because I'm starting to get hangry. Oh my gosh, it's almost 12:30 here. It's lunchtime. No wonder I'm hungry. We'll go ahead and stop that there, and we'll kind of let you all go. If you got any questions, concerns, tips, or tricks, or anything like that, put it in the comments section. Send me an email. Bearded Printer ends up saying, sorry, I was away for a bit putting the kids to bed. I thought everything's been educational. Yeah, how to smuggle drugs in prison. But yeah, it's good having you aboard. Thanks for stopping by. I kind of enjoy this, getting streaming, talking, chatting, having a good time with some good people. It's all worth it. I like it. Like I said, if you've got any information for me, if you've got models or want to show off your hobbies and the stuff that you do, or you just want to chat and say hi, which you can end up doing after you like the video and subscribe to the channel, that's always a given. You can contact me here on my email address. Thank God the email address. Facebook doesn't work, but the email address, I always answer that. So you shoot me an email. If there's cool models that you run into, if you do tabletop gaming or whatever hobby, laser engraving, if you're prior military, just give it a shout out. Yeah, I just kind of enjoy that stuff. You got a bunch of people over here that bought me coffee. There's a link for that. I do my own coffee. It's not really a thing. The biggest thing that you can do is like and subscribe to the channel. So I would appreciate that. Emails, I always answer within 1 or 2 days. So yeah, there's that. And I also have some free models for people that are wondering. Let me throw that link up in there from Creality Print. It's not a big, huge thing, but it ends up that I use Tinkercad to do a few things, and these are all free models, so I'll put that in the comments section there, and you can click on that and you can download some stuff. So, matter of fact, so there it is, Creality Cloud. Again, I'm not a professional CAD person, but I do have some cool stuff that I think is cool that I've made that you can download and, I don't know, remix. All of it is free. So, yeah, paint holders, paint racks, kind of stuff, cell phone, teleprompter, stuff like that. Yeah, it's just got some cool stuff going on. So anyway, that's what we got. Oh, let's see, we got another comment here. So let's get back to that. Corsair the Pirate says, just saying hi. For some reason, I'm still awake. Okay. Appreciate you saying hi, though. Hopefully you can get some rest. But yeah, we're just going to call this good, and I got to get some food because I am really, really starving. Sunday here in Korea. So I think we'll do some little scrambled eggs, toast, and get my protein on. We'll do that. And thanks for watching. It's been good. I like it. You all are good people. Remember, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all in the next one. Peace. Peace. It's good stuff. Y'all are good. Good, good, good. Here we got an alibi. Corsair says, former Air Force, 4 years stationed at Osan, Korean linguist. Aim high. Oh, cool. Yeah, we're right down the street from about 20, 30 minutes away from Osan. We spend many, many times out in the Ville, out in that Osan area. There's a few good restaurants out there as well. So we need to go back and get our eat on. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks for service. I appreciate that, and everybody else. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace. No more alibis. We're done.